Hello, this is a review of the OXO Good Grips Potato Ricer. This is what you get out of the box, unopened, and it has an easy pull tab on the back that's supposed to help it get out easily, but you're still going to have to use wire snips or something to cut the cable tie around the base, or a good pair of scissors. Alright, it's opened, and now we use wire snips to cut the cable tie. Now the instructions it comes with is this little card that you see here, and this is actually enough for this. It really just tells you how to rotate the device to get the three settings: fine, medium, and coarse. It says line up with these icons. But by the way, I was looking for icons and I realized, see right here, see the big box? The arrows has to do with how you get it off for cleaning. So you see the line right here? On the right here, the line is what you're lining up, and that's what makes the coarse setting. Then there's some other settings. There's a smaller box, and then there's the smallest box. So basically, what it's telling you to do is you can start rotating this side like this until the next setting. So this is the medium setting that we see here. Then the finest or puree setting was rotated at the last position. That's that setting. So I had just rotated the line around to the smallest dot. It rotates really easily, as we see here, and when you want to take it off for cleaning, that's where you line it up with this arrow here, one notch further. So basically, I mean, that's the cleaning instructions. They tell you remove the discs for cleaning and so on. But to use it, if you haven't used a ricer, basically it says, remember, you boil the vegetables first if they're a firm vegetable. So like if it's potatoes, carrots, or something like that, you don't just put the raw potato in and then make mashed potatoes, right? You cook the potatoes first, then you use this to extrude the potatoes once cooked and softened, and the same for carrots. Now with fruits or vegetables, or fruits that is, I'm sorry, you will definitely just be able to mash them through if they're not really firm. All you basically have to do for everything is cut it small enough so that it fits in there. And then, so you cut your potato down to size. It doesn't really matter how small you cut it. And then this is basically a big plunger, which gets pushed on down. The nice thing about this also is, see the groove up here? This is what sits on a pot edge. So you can easily press your, whether it's probably potatoes, making mashed potatoes with these or something like that, you can set it on the edge. You got a little bit of rubber grip here, so that it sits a little bit on there, but it's not going to lock onto the pot. So, but most of the time, remember, you're going to be squeezing these two together, and so pop it open, put the next in, and so on. So here's your instruction card. It's really small, really simple, but this is easy enough to save as well if I forget. And here it is with the front disc removed for cleaning. It doesn't pop right off. You line up with the arrows, then you wiggle it just a little bit and it'll come off. You don't have to use a lot of force, but it didn't just slide right off once you line it up. Remember, you line up with the arrow, but I still had to wriggle it back and forth and give a little bit of a pull, and then it came right off. So basically they're telling you remove this from here so that you can do your cleaning. This disc stays on. You won't be taking that one off. Take some potatoes and peel them, like so. And now we want to cut off any of the dark spots, or the eyes, that still remain. Now rinse them well under water. Now cut them into fairly even, about 1-inch cubes, because we want them to cook quickly and evenly once we put them in boiling water. Then put them in a pot filled with water. Alright, and we're going to boil them for about 7 to 10 minutes, but its cooking time will vary, so we're going to start testing them with a fork at about 5 minutes. You can cover that if you want, but I only cover it up until it starts boiling, just to keep the temperature in, and then I don't recommend keeping it covered after that. And also, I'd recommend a low boil, so once it starts boiling, turn it down so that it's not at a full boil anymore. Okay, it took about 6 minutes to come to a boil, and then I turned it down, so we're going to let it boil for a few more minutes before we start testing it with a fork. So at about 9 minutes, after 3 minutes of actual boiling, you can stick the fork in, and with a little bit of pressure, it does not go in. So not ready yet. So we're waiting for when the fork goes easily into the center of one, and then try a few more to make sure it's consistent. Okay, at 15 minutes the fork easily goes through the center of the largest ones, and now we're going to strain them. Strained and then shaken out the excess water. Set the ricer on the pot with the groove on the edge, open it up, and plan to start feeding these in through and extruding them by pressing down on the lever. Fill like so. And it takes some pressure if you do it one-handed, but once you start going, if you're not holding the camera, it should be easy enough to do with two hands, even more easily than that. Okay, repeat until you got it all mashed through the grate. Alright, and we're done with the rest of the potatoes. Fed them in here with the spoon. It actually squeezes pretty well. It's a little bit of pressure at first and then starts to extrude pretty easily. You'll want to scrape this off before you're done. And these are the 2 potatoes that I had. One thing that I would note is maybe you want a slightly deeper pot than I have here because, you know, as much as the handle has, obviously if the pot isn't deep enough, it's just going to rest on it. But honestly, even that wasn't a problem. It was nice to just be able to set it down, but I didn't mind setting it like that as well. Alright, now we're going to start seasoning it and then flavoring it, but of course the amount we use will completely vary based on how much potatoes you have. About 2 tablespoons of butter for our potatoes, and about 2 tablespoons of cream cheese, add about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of milk to make it creamy. Then mix. Add a little salt and pepper just to shake. We needed to add more salt, so salt it to taste. And there we have it, creamy mashed potatoes. Well, I'm really happy with it. It's a good flavor. I added even a little bit more butter at the end. Obviously, it's just relative to how much potatoes you have. But out of this, it makes creamy mashed potatoes. You get a little bit of grit in there when you use the full large hole size on the ricer, but nowhere near as much as you do with a hand masher. And there we have it, plated for a full meal with our mashed potato complement along with steak, biscuit, and broccoli. And a dinner for 2, and you can also add blue cheese butter that makes steak awesome. And the alternative is to use a wire masher, like you see here, to just, after you've strained them, put them directly in the pot instead of running them through the ricer, and this time you just mash around inside the pot. And you get a different consistency because you see the kind of holes that you have here. You'll get larger and smaller pieces in there, and it all depends on how much mashing you do. You can get a heartier consistency with some larger pieces and some really interesting texture. Oh, and you can leave the skins on if you want to, if you're going to use the wire masher. But if you're going to use the ricer, you're going to want to take the skins off like I did when I peeled. Now, another tip I would have is if you are going to use one of these that gives you a different consistency, I strongly recommend a wire masher like the KitchenAid one that I have here. That is absolutely excellent, right? Because it's really, really strong and can make quick work of things, and they're not going to stick around on top, as opposed to this terrible one that we used for too long. They stick in the holes, you got to constantly scrape it off, and it gets bent. You see it's bent upwards, so at some time you're really not getting to the bottom of the pot. This is so much better than that. So now between the ricer and the wire masher, it's simply different consistency. Both of them are good options. Obviously the ricer gives you other applications as well that's not just for this kind of mashing.